What would you do if your husband handed you divorce papers because of one mistake you regret? How far would you go to convince everyone, including yourself, that it wasn't cheating? In the end, can regret erase the damage when everyone's watching, and your husband fights back? By the book? The front door clicked shut behind me at 2:47 a.m., and I could already feel Adrian's disapproval radiating from upstairs. The house felt different, colder somehow, like the temperature had dropped 10 degrees since I'd left for my night out with the girls. I kicked off my heels and padded up the stairs in my stockings, trying to be quiet. Our 7-year-old daughter Issa was sleeping, and the last thing I needed was to wake her up and have to explain why Mommy was coming home so late. Adrian was lying in bed with his back to me, but I could tell from his breathing that he wasn't asleep. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire, ready to snap. "Hey," I whispered, sliding into bed beside him. "Sorry I'm so late. You know how it is when the girls get together." He didn't respond, didn't even acknowledge that I'd spoken. I tried again. "The club was packed tonight. Sarah's birthday, remember? I told you about it last week." Still nothing. His shoulders were rigid under the blanket, and I could feel the tension radiating from his body. "Adrian, come on, don't be like this." Finally, he turned over to face me. His eyes were cold, distant, a look I'd never seen before in our 8 years of marriage. "How is Jessie?" he asked quietly. My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "Jessie Carter, your gym buddy. How is he tonight?" I felt heat creep up my neck. "I don't know what you're talking about. It was just us girls." Adrian sat up in bed, and I could see the hurt in his eyes even in the dim light filtering through our bedroom curtains. "Kalantha, I'm going to ask you one more time. How was your night?" The way he said my name, flat, emotionless, sent a chill down my spine. But I couldn't back down now. Nothing had really happened anyway. Sure, Jessie had been there, and yes, we'd danced, but it was just dancing. Just harmless fun. "I already told you. It was Sarah's birthday. We went to that new club downtown, had some drinks, danced a little. That's it." Adrian stared at me for a long moment, then lay back down and turned away. "Okay, Kalantha, if that's your story." The dismissal in his voice made my chest tight. "It's not a story, Adrian. It's what happened. Why are you being so paranoid?" "I'm not being paranoid." "Then what's this about? Are you seriously going to give me the silent treatment because I went out with my friends?" He was quiet for so long I thought he'd fallen asleep. Then, barely audible, "Your friends? What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Go to sleep." But I couldn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying the night in my head. Yes, Jessie had been there. Yes, we'd danced. But it was innocent. Just two friends having fun. The fact that we'd kissed, briefly, just once, didn't mean anything. It was a mistake. I regretted it immediately. That had to count for something, right? The next morning, Adrian was already gone when I woke up. He'd made coffee, but hadn't left me any, which was unusual. He always made sure there was enough for both of us. Issa was eating cereal at the kitchen table, still in her pajamas. "Where's Daddy?" I asked, pouring myself coffee from the dregs in the pot. "He left early," Issa said without looking up from her bowl. "He seemed sad." "Sad? What makes you say that?" She shrugged. "He didn't sing in the shower like he always does. And he forgot to kiss me goodbye." My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Sabine. "How was last night? You looked amazing in those pics Sarah posted." I quickly pulled up Sarah's Instagram. There we were, the whole group of us, smiling and laughing at our table. I looked good. My hair was perfect, my makeup still fresh in the early photos. But as I scrolled through the carousel of images, my heart sank. There, in the last photo, was Jesse. He had his arm around me, and we were both laughing at something off camera. It was innocent enough, but I could see how it might look to someone who didn't know the context. I quickly typed back to Sabine. "Fun night. Adrian's being weird about it, though. acting all jealous and suspicious. Her response came immediately. Men are so insecure. You're allowed to have friends and go out. Don't let him make you feel guilty for having a life. She was right. I was being ridiculous, letting Adrian's paranoia get to me. I hadn't done anything wrong. Not really. My phone rang. Adrian's mother, Miriam. "Hello, Miriam," I answered, trying to keep my voice light. "Calantha, dear, how are you?" "I'm fine. Just getting Issa ready for school." "Good, good. I was just wondering, is everything all right between you and Adrian? He seemed a bit off when I talked to him this morning." My pulse quickened. "Everything's fine. Why would you think something's wrong?" "Oh, I don't know. Mother's intuition, I suppose. He just sounded tired." "He's been working a lot lately," I said quickly. "You know how he gets when he's stressed." Well, if you need anything, you know you can call me." After she hung up, I stared at my phone, a growing sense of unease settling in my stomach. Why had Adrian called his mother? What had he told her? I pushed the thoughts away and focused on getting Issa ready for school. Everything was fine. Adrian would get over whatever was bothering him, and we'd go back to normal. But as I watched Issa gather her backpack, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted last night. Something I couldn't take back, no matter how much I regretted it. Sunday brunch at Romano's was supposed to be our weekly family tradition. Adrian, Issa, and I would meet up with various family members and friends for pancakes and gossip. It was usually the highlight of my week, a chance to catch up with everyone and show off our perfect little family. But this Sunday felt different from the moment we walked in. Adrian barely spoke during the drive over, and when we arrived, he immediately gravitated toward his mother, Miriam, and her friend Patricia, leaving me to handle Issa and find our usual table. Sabine was already there with her boyfriend Derek, along with my mother Judith and a few other friends. I was relieved to see friendly faces, especially after the tension at home. "There she is," Sabine called out as I approached. "The party girl herself." I forced a laugh and slid into the booth beside her. "Hardly. I'm paying for it today, trust me." "Where's Adrian?" Mum asked, looking around. "Talking to his mother," I said, trying to keep the irritation out of my voice. As if on cue, Adrian appeared with Miriam in tow. But instead of sitting beside me like he usually did, he took the seat across from me, next to his mother. The message was clear. We were on opposite sides of the table, literally and figuratively. "So," Miriam said once everyone had ordered, "Calantha, I heard you had quite the night out yesterday." The way she said it made my skin crawl. "Just a birthday celebration for my friend Sarah, nothing too crazy." "Oh, I saw the pictures on Facebook," chimed in Jessica, one of the other wives. "You looked like you were having a blast." I smiled tightly. It was fun to get out and dance for a change. "And who was that handsome man in the photos with you?" Jessica continued, either oblivious to the tension or deliberately stirring the pot. Before I could answer, a new voice cut through the conversation. "That would be my boyfriend." Everyone turned to see a petite Asian woman standing beside our table. I recognized her immediately. Tasha Lynn, Jesse's girlfriend. My blood ran cold. "I'm sorry," I stammered. "Do we know each other?" "Not officially," Tasha replied, her voice steady but her eyes blazing. "But I feel like I know you pretty well after watching that video from last night." The table went dead silent. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, but I couldn't look away from Tasha's face. "I'm not sure what you're talking about," I managed. Tasha laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Really? Because Jessie came home last night with quite the story, about how some married woman at the club threw herself at him." "That's not," I started, but Sabine cut me off. "Excuse me, but who are you exactly?" my sister demanded, standing up. "And what gives you the right to come over here and harass my sister?" "I'm the girlfriend of the man your sister was making out with last night," Tasha shot back. "And I think her husband deserves to know what kind of wife he married." I looked at Adrian, expecting him to defend me, to tell this woman to back off, but he just sat there, watching the scene unfold with that same cold expression he'd worn the night before. "There was no making out," I said, my voice rising. "We danced. That's it." "Dancing," Tasha repeated. "Is that what you call it when your tongue is down someone else's throat?" Gasps rippled around the table. Mom looked mortified. Jessica was practically salivating at the drama, and Sabine looked like she was ready to throw punches. "You're lying," Sabine said fiercely. "My sister would never..." "Would never what?" Tasha pulled out her phone. "Because I have video evidence that says otherwise." My heart stopped. "Video evidence?" "That's enough," Miriam said quietly, but her voice carried authority. "This is neither the time nor the place for this discussion." "You're right," Tasha agreed, putting her phone away. "But Jessie thought you should know that your little secret isn't so secret anymore. Have a nice brunch." She walked away, leaving our table in stunned silence. "What the hell was that about?" Derek whispered. I felt like I was going to be sick. "She's obviously some kind of psycho, probably jealous that her boyfriend was talking to other women." "Calantha," Mom said slowly, "what really happened last night?" "Nothing happened," I snapped. "I went out with friends. I danced. I came home. Since when is that a crime?" "Since you started lying about it," Adrian said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. It was the first thing he'd said since we'd arrived. "I'm not lying," I insisted. "You're being paranoid and jealous, and now you're trying to turn everyone against me." "I'm not trying to do anything," Adrian replied. "I'm just sitting here listening to you dig yourself deeper into this hole." "What hole? There is no hole. I haven't done anything wrong." "Then why are you so defensive?" Miriam asked gently. "Because my own husband doesn't trust me. Because some random woman just accused me of cheating in front of my family. Because everyone is acting like I'm some kind of criminal." My voice had gotten loud enough that other diners were starting to stare. Issa, who had been coloring quietly during the adult conversation, looked up with worried eyes. "Mummy, are you okay?" The concern in my daughter's voice broke something inside me. I took a shaky breath and forced a smile. "I'm fine, baby. Just a misunderstanding." But as I looked around the table, at the faces of my family and friends, I could see that the damage was already done. Some looked confused, others skeptical. Only Sabine still seemed to be completely on my side. My phone buzzed with a text. I glanced down and felt my world tilt. It was from Marcus Lee, Adrian's co-worker. "Thought you should know this is making the rounds at the office. Sorry." Attached was a video file. With trembling fingers, I opened it. The video was grainy and obviously shot from across a crowded club, but it was clear enough. There I was, pressed against Jessie on the dance floor, our bodies moving together in a way that was definitely not innocent. And then, unmistakably, the kiss. It was brief, maybe 3 seconds, but it was undeniably real. I looked up to find Adrian watching me. Somehow, I knew he'd already seen it. "We need to go," he said quietly, standing up. "Issa, get your coat." "But we haven't eaten yet," Issa protested. "We'll get something at home," Adrian replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. As we gathered our things, I could feel the weight of everyone's stares. The whispered conversations that would start the moment we left. The phone calls that would be made. The gossip that would spread. In the parking lot, Sabine caught up with me. "Cal, what's really going on?" she asked, her voice gentler now. I wanted to tell her everything, to break down and admit that I'd made a terrible mistake. But the words wouldn't come. "It's not what it looks like," I said instead. "It was just a moment of stupidity. It didn't mean anything." Sabine nodded, but I could see the doubt creeping into her eyes. "Maybe you should talk to Adrian. Really talk to him. Explain what happened." I tried. He won't listen. Then make him listen. But as I watched my husband buckle our daughter into her car seat, his movements mechanical and distant, I wondered if it was already too late. By Monday morning, my phone was buzzing constantly with notifications. Text messages, Facebook comments, Instagram DMs. Everyone seemed to have an opinion about what had happened at the club. Most of my close friends were supportive, at least publicly. But I could read between the lines of their carefully worded messages. Hope everything works out. Thinking of you during this difficult time. Here if you need to talk. They all knew. The video had spread faster than I could have imagined. At work, conversation stopped when I walked by. Co-workers who usually greeted me with warm smiles now offered awkward nods or avoided eye contact altogether. By lunch, I was eating alone in my car, too embarrassed to face the cafeteria. My phone rang. Sarah, the birthday girl. "Cal, I am so sorry," she said without preamble. "I had no idea this would blow up like this." "It's not your fault," I replied, though part of me blamed her for posting those photos in the first place. "Is there anything I can do? Should I delete the pictures?" "It's too late for that. The damage is done." "What are you going to do?" I didn't have an answer. What could I do? The video was out there, spreading through social media like wildfire. People were sharing it, commenting on it, judging me based on 3 seconds of my life. That evening, I decided to take control of the narrative. I crafted a carefully worded Facebook post. It's been brought to my attention that some people are spreading rumors and gossip about my personal life. I want to set the record straight. I am a devoted wife and mother who made a momentary error in judgment. We all make mistakes, and I deeply regret mine. What I don't regret is standing up for myself against those who would tear down my family with lies and speculation. I ask for privacy during this difficult time as my husband and I work through this together. Trust and forgiveness. Honest marriage is work. I hit post and waited for the supportive comments to roll in. They didn't. Instead, the responses ranged from lukewarm to brutal. A momentary error in judgment. "Girl, that was a full make-out session." "Your poor husband. I feel so bad for him." "Maybe if you spent less time at clubs and more time at home, this wouldn't have happened." Cheating is cheating. Period. I started deleting the negative comments as fast as they appeared, but they kept coming. For every supportive friend, there were 3 people ready to tear me down. My mother called that evening. "Calantha, I saw your Facebook post." And I think you should take it down. You're only making things worse." "How am I making things worse? I'm defending myself." "You're drawing more attention to the situation. People who might not have heard about it are now seeing your post and asking questions." She was right, but I couldn't admit it. "So I'm just supposed to let people trash me online?" "You're supposed to focus on your marriage. Where's Adrian now?" I looked around our empty living room. "He's staying at his mother's for a few days. He says he needs space to think." "And Isa? She's with me, but she keeps asking why Daddy doesn't come home for dinner anymore." Mom sighed. "Honey, maybe it's time to consider that this is bigger than just gossip and rumors. Maybe you need to really look at what you've done and figure out how to make it right." "I know what I did," I snapped. "I kissed someone who wasn't my husband, for 3 seconds. And I regretted it immediately. Doesn't that count for anything?" "Not if you keep acting like the victim." After she hung up, I sat in the silence of my house, scrolling through the endless stream of comments and shares. The video had been posted to multiple Facebook groups, shared on Twitter, even uploaded to TikTok with commentary. I was becoming a cautionary tale, a meme, a symbol of everything wrong with modern marriage. My phone buzzed with a call from Isa's school. "Mrs. Price, this is Janet Morrison, Isa's teacher." "Is everything okay? Is Isa hurt?" "No, she's fine physically, but I wanted to check in about the home situation. Isa mentioned that her father isn't living at home right now, and she seems quite distressed about it." "It's just temporary," I said quickly. "We're working through some issues." "I understand. These things happen. But I also wanted to let you know that some of the other parents have been talking about what they've seen online. I'm concerned about how this might affect Isa if the children start repeating things they've heard at home." My stomach dropped. What kind of things? I'd rather not get into specifics over the phone, but I think it would be beneficial for you and your husband to present a united front, at least where school is concerned. After she hung up, I called Adrian immediately. We need to talk, I said when he answered. About what? About Issa, about school, about how this is affecting our daughter. There was a long pause. I'll come by tonight after she's asleep. When he arrived at 9:30, he looked exhausted. His usually neat hair was disheveled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. You look terrible, I said, immediately regretting the words. Thanks. That's exactly what I needed to hear. We sat in our living room like strangers, the space between us on the couch feeling like an ocean. Issa's teacher called, I began. I know, she called me too. So what do we do? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. I've been thinking about that, about what's best for Issa. Something in his tone made me nervous. And I think we need to consider a legal separation. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Adrian, no. It was one mistake, one stupid, meaningless mistake that I regret with every fiber of my being. It's not just about the mistake, Calantha. It's about everything that's happened since. The lying, the denial, the way you've handled this whole situation. I haven't lied about anything. You told me nothing happened. You said it was just dancing. Even now, you're calling it a mistake instead of what it actually was. What would you call it? Cheating. I would call it cheating. The word hung in the air between us like a curse. It wasn't cheating, I insisted. Cheating is an affair. Cheating is sleeping with someone else. This was just a moment of poor judgment. Adrian stood up, running his hands through his hair. Do you hear yourself right now? You're still minimizing it, still trying to make it sound like less than it was. Because it was less. It was 3 seconds of my life that I immediately regretted. Then why didn't you tell me about it? I opened my mouth to respond, then closed it again, because I knew the answer, and I knew he wouldn't like it. Because I knew you'd overreact, just like you're doing now. Adrian stared at me for a long moment, then shook his head. I'll be in touch through my lawyer about the separation papers. Your lawyer? Adrian, wait. But he was already heading for the door. We'll work out a schedule for Issa, but I think it's best if we don't have any direct contact for a while. The door closed behind him with a soft click, leaving me alone with the wreckage of my marriage and the growing realization that my 3-second mistake was going to cost me everything. The next few days blurred together in a haze of damage control and desperate phone calls. I reached out to Jesse, hoping he could help me figure out how to contain the situation, but his response was lukewarm at best. Look, Calantha, I'm really sorry about how this all went down, he said when I finally got him on the phone. But Tasha is furious, and I'm trying to salvage my relationship here. So you're just going to throw me under the bus? I'm not throwing anyone anywhere. I'm just saying that maybe we should keep our distance for a while, let things cool down. Things won't cool down, Jesse. My husband is talking about separation. My daughter is asking why Daddy doesn't live here anymore. This is my life we're talking about. And I'm sorry about that. I really am. But what do you want me to do? Tell everyone that I forced myself on you, because that's not what happened, and we both know it. He was right, and I hated him for it. The kiss had been mutual. Brief, regrettable, but mutual. I just need you to tell people that it didn't mean anything, that it was just a stupid mistake. I can't control what people think, Cal, and honestly, I think the more we try to explain it, the worse it's going to get. After he hung up, I felt more alone than ever. Even my closest allies were starting to distance themselves from the situation. That afternoon, Miriam called and asked to meet for coffee. I almost said no. The last thing I needed was a lecture from my mother-in-law, but I was desperate for any connection to Adrian. We met at a small cafe downtown, away from our usual haunts where everyone would know us. Miriam was already seated when I arrived, looking elegant and composed as always. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down across from her. I wasn't sure you'd want to see me. You're still my daughter-in-law, and more importantly, you're Issa's mother. We ordered coffee and sat in uncomfortable silence for a moment. I suppose you've seen the video, I finally said. Yes? And I suppose you think I'm a terrible person. Miriam sighed. I think you're a person who made a terrible choice, but that doesn't make you terrible. Her unexpected kindness made my eyes well up with tears. I don't know how to fix this, Miriam. I don't know how to make Adrian understand that it didn't mean anything. Can I ask you something, Calantha? And I want you to be completely honest with me. I nodded. Do you love my son? Of course I do, more than anything. Then why did you kiss another man? The question was so simple, so direct, that it caught me off guard. I'd been so focused on defending my actions, on minimizing the damage, that I hadn't really examined the why behind it all. I don't know, I admitted. I was drunk, I was feeling good. Jessie was paying attention to me in a way that felt exciting. It was stupid and impulsive, and I regretted it the second it happened. But it did happen. Yes, it happened. Miriam reached across the table and took my hand. Calantha, I'm going to tell you something that might be hard to hear. This isn't really about the kiss. What do you mean? I mean that Adrian could probably forgive the kiss. People make mistakes, especially when alcohol is involved. But what he can't forgive is everything that came after. I don't understand. The lying, the denial, the way you've tried to rewrite what happened to make yourself feel better, the way you've attacked him for being hurt instead of taking responsibility for hurting him. I pulled my hand away. I have taken responsibility. I admitted I made a mistake. No, you admitted to an error in judgment. You admitted to 3 seconds of poor decision-making. You've done everything except admit that you cheated on your husband. Because I didn't cheat. Cheating is betraying your marriage vows, Miriam interrupted. Cheating is being intimate with someone who isn't your spouse. Cheating is exactly what you did. The words hit me like a slap. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, but something in Miriam's eyes stopped me. I've been married for 42 years, she continued, and in that time, I've seen a lot of couples go through difficult periods. The ones who survive are the ones who can look at their mistakes honestly and take full responsibility for them. The ones who don't survive are the ones who spend all their energy trying to minimize their actions instead of addressing them. So what are you saying? That my marriage is over? I'm saying that it will be if you don't stop acting like a victim and start acting like a wife who wants to save her marriage. I left the cafe feeling worse than when I'd arrived. Miriam's words echoed in my head as I drove home. Stop acting like a victim and start acting like a wife. But how could I do that when everyone was treating me like the villain? That evening, my sister Sabine came over with Chinese takeout and wine. I was grateful for the company and the distraction. How are you holding up? She asked as we settled on the couch with our food. I've been better. Adrian's mother basically told me this is all my fault. Well, she's not exactly an objective party. Maybe not, but even you have to admit that this whole thing has gotten completely out of hand. Sabine was quiet for a moment, picking at her lo mein. Cal, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you really think this is all just about gossip and rumors? I looked at her in surprise. What do you mean? I mean, maybe people are reacting so strongly because what you did was actually pretty serious. You too? I thought you were on my side. I am on your side. I'll always be on your side. But that doesn't mean I can't see that you messed up. Big time. I felt tears starting to well up again. So everyone thinks I'm a terrible person. No one thinks you're a terrible person, but everyone thinks you made a terrible choice. And the way you've been handling it since, it's not helping. How should I be handling it? What would you do? I would stop trying to justify it and start trying to make amends. I would get off social media and stop worrying about what other people think. and I would do whatever it takes to convince my husband that I'm sorry and that it will never happen again. I have said I'm sorry. Have you? Really? Or have you just said you're sorry that everyone is making such a big deal about it? I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it again. Because when I really thought about it, I wasn't sure I had actually apologized for the kiss itself. I'd been too busy defending it, explaining it, minimizing it. I don't know how to fix this, I whispered. Sabine put her arm around me. Maybe start by admitting that it's broken, really broken, and then figure out if you want to fix it badly enough to do whatever it takes. As I lay in bed that night, alone in the house that had once felt like a home, I finally allowed myself to really think about what I'd done. Not the 3-second kiss that everyone was talking about, but everything that had led up to it, and everything that had come after. I thought about the way I'd been flirting with Jesse at the gym for months. The way I'd dressed that night, knowing he'd be there. The way I'd felt when he'd pulled me close on the dance floor. And I thought about Adrian, coming home to an empty bed while I was pressed against another man in a crowded club. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I let myself feel the full weight of what I'd done. And it was crushing. The separation papers arrived on a Thursday morning, delivered by a courier in a manila envelope that felt heavier than it should have. I stared at the documents spread across my kitchen table, the legal language making everything feel suddenly, terrifyingly real. Petition for legal separation, irreconcilable differences, custody arrangement. The words blurred together as I tried to process what I was reading. Adrian wasn't just talking about separation anymore. He was actually doing it. I called him immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried again an hour later with the same result. Finally, I sent a text. "We need to talk about these papers. This is insane." His response came 3 hours later. "My lawyer will be in touch to schedule a meeting." His lawyer, like I was some kind of stranger instead of the woman he'd promised to love for better or worse. That afternoon, Issa came home from school with red-rimmed eyes and a crumpled permission slip for a father-daughter dance. "I don't think Daddy can come," she said quietly, sitting at the kitchen table where the separation papers had been just hours before. "Why would you say that?" "Because Tommy Richardson said his parents got divorced and his dad doesn't live with them anymore either." My heart broke a little more. "Daddy and I aren't getting divorced, sweetheart. We're just working through some grown-up problems. But he doesn't live here anymore. It's temporary." That's what Tommy's mum said too. I knelt down beside her chair and took her small hands in mine. "I promise you, everything is going to be okay." But even as I said the words, I wasn't sure I believed them anymore. That evening, Sabine called with news that made my stomach drop. "Cal, I need to tell you something, and you're not going to like it." "What now?" "Miriam called me today." "Adrian's mother called you? Why?" "She's worried about Issa, about how all this drama is affecting her." "And?" "And she asked me to forward her some of the text messages you've sent me, the ones where you've been venting about Adrian." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Please tell me you didn't." "I'm sorry, Cal, I really am. But she made some good points about how this is all impacting Issa, and I thought maybe if Adrian could see how upset you are." "What messages, Sabine? Which ones did you send her?" "The one where you called him psycho for not trusting you. The one where you said he was being controlling and jealous. The one where you said you were starting to wonder if you married the wrong person." Each message felt like a nail in my coffin. I'd sent those texts in moments of anger and frustration, never thinking they'd be shared with anyone else. "I can't believe you betrayed me like this." "I didn't betray you. I'm trying to help you. But you can't keep saying things like that about your husband and then expect him to want to work things out. Those were private conversations. And now they're evidence in your separation case. Miriam said Adrian's lawyer is documenting everything. Social media posts, text messages, witness statements from the club." "Witness statements?" "Apparently other people at the club that night have come forward with their own versions of what they saw." I hung up and immediately went to my laptop, pulling up every social media account I had. I started deleting posts, comments, anything that could be used against me. But as I worked, I realized how futile it was. Screenshots existed. People had already seen everything. My phone rang. An unknown number. "Is this Calantha Price?" "Yes." "This is Rebecca Martinez from Channel 7 News. I was wondering if you'd like to comment on the viral video that's been circulating online." I hung up immediately, my hands shaking. The local news was calling me. This had officially spiraled completely out of control. Over the next few days, more details emerged about just how thoroughly Adrian had been documenting everything. According to Sabine, who was now getting regular updates from Miriam, he had screenshots of all my social media posts since the night at the club, copies of text messages I'd sent to friends and family, the original video from the club, plus several other photos taken that night, witness statements from at least 4 other people who'd been at the club, documentation of the news coverage and online discussions, records of how the situation had affected Issa at school. It was like he'd been building a case against me from the very beginning. The meeting with the lawyers was scheduled for the following Tuesday. As the date approached, I felt increasingly desperate and alone. Jessie had completely cut off contact. Most of my friends were keeping their distance. Even Sabine seemed conflicted about supporting me. The night before the meeting, I sat in Issa's room watching her sleep, wondering how I'd managed to destroy everything that mattered to me over 3 seconds of stupidity. My phone buzzed with a text from Adrian. "Tomorrow is about figuring out what's best for Issa moving forward. I hope you can approach it with that in mind." I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "I love her too, and I love you. I hope you remember that." He didn't reply. As I got ready for bed, I caught sight of myself in the bathroom mirror. I looked exhausted, older somehow. The confident woman who'd gone out dancing just 2 weeks ago was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. Tomorrow, I would sit in a room with lawyers and try to convince my husband that our marriage was worth saving. But for the first time, I wasn't sure I believed it myself. The evidence against me was overwhelming, and most of it had come from my own actions and words. I'd been so focused on defending myself that I'd never stopped to consider how my defense looked to everyone else. I'd been so busy insisting that it wasn't cheating that I'd never actually apologized for cheating. I'd been so concerned with being right that I'd forgotten about being sorry. And now it might be too late to fix any of it. The law office of Henderson and Associates was located in a gleaming downtown high-rise, all marble floors and floor-to-ceiling windows. As I sat in the waiting area, I felt completely out of place in my carefully chosen outfit, a conservative navy dress that I hoped would make me look like a devoted wife and mother rather than the woman from the viral video. Adrian arrived exactly on time, accompanied by his lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s named Patricia Henderson. He looked composed, professional, like he belonged in the sterile environment of legal documents and billable hours. We exchanged awkward nods as we were led into a conference room dominated by a massive oak table. Patricia took the seat across from me and began pulling documents from her briefcase with the efficiency of someone who'd done this countless times before. "Before we begin," Patricia said, "I want to make clear that this meeting is being recorded and that anything said here may be used in future proceedings." My stomach clenched. Future proceedings? "The custody hearing," Adrian said quietly, "if it comes to that." Patricia opened a thick folder and spread its contents across the table. I recognized some of the documents immediately: screenshots of my Facebook posts, printouts of text messages, photos from the club. But there were others I hadn't expected. Witness statements from people I'd never met, a letter from Issa's school counselor, phone records showing calls between Adrian and various family members in the days following the incident. "Mrs. Price," Patricia began, "my client has asked me to present you with the evidence we've compiled regarding the events of 2 weeks ago and their aftermath. The purpose is to help you understand the full scope of the situation before we discuss terms for the separation. She slid the first document across the table. A timeline of events, starting with my night out and ending with yesterday's date. Every social media post, every text message, every phone call had been catalogued and cross-referenced. "This is insane," I said, looking at Adrian. "You've been spying on me." "I've been documenting your behavior," he replied calmly. "There's a difference," Patricia continued, pulling out photo after photo from the club. Some I'd seen before, but others were new, taken from different angles, showing moments I'd forgotten or hoped no one had noticed. "These were provided by other patrons at the club that night," she explained. "People who recognized you from the viral video and came forward with additional evidence. In one photo, Jesse and I were dancing close, his hands on my waist. In another, we were talking intimately at the bar, our heads bent together. The final photo showed the kiss itself, captured from a different angle than the original video. The kiss lasted approximately 8 seconds, Patricia continued, not 3 as you've claimed in various statements. "I don't see how the exact duration matters," I said, but my voice sounded weak even to me. "It matters because it demonstrates a pattern of minimizing and misrepresenting the facts," Patricia replied. "Which brings us to these." She pulled out a stack of screenshots from my social media accounts. My Facebook post about rumors and gossip, comments I'd made on friends' posts, Instagram stories I'd shared about trust and marriage. "In the 2 weeks since the incident," Patricia read from a prepared statement, "Mrs. Price has made 17 public posts or comments related to the situation. In none of these posts has she taken full responsibility for her actions. Instead, she has consistently portrayed herself as a victim of gossip and has implied that her husband's reaction is unreasonable." Next came the text messages, conversations with Sabine, with my mother, with friends. Reading my own words back in this clinical environment was mortifying. I sounded petty, defensive, completely lacking in remorse. "This message, sent to your sister on the morning after the incident," Patricia continued, reads, "Adrienne is being a total psycho about last night, acting like I committed murder or something." I was upset, I protested. People say things they don't mean when they're upset. And this one, sent 3 days later, starting to think I married the wrong person. A real husband would trust his wife. Each message was worse than the last, painting a picture of someone who was completely unrepentant and willing to blame everyone except herself. "Now," Patricia said, "let's discuss the impact on your daughter." She pulled out a report from Issa's school counselor, detailing conversations they'd had about the situation at home. My heart broke, reading about my daughter's confusion and distress, her worry that her parents didn't love each other anymore. "There's also this," Patricia added, sliding across a printout of a local news article. The headline read, "Local Mothers Club cheating video goes viral." Below it was a photo of me, taken from my Facebook profile. The story has been picked up by 3 local news outlets and several online publications. Your daughter's classmates are old enough to read, Mrs. Price. Their parents certainly are. I looked at Adrian, searching his face for any sign of the man who'd once loved me enough to propose in this very city, who'd held my hand during labor, who'd slow danced with me in our kitchen just last month. "What do you want from me?" I asked quietly. "I want you to tell the truth," he replied. "Just once. I want you to admit what you did without trying to minimize it or justify it or explain it away." "I kissed another man," I said, the words feeling strange in my mouth. "I cheated on you." And I'm sorry." Adrian leaned forward slightly. "Are you sorry you did it, or are you sorry you got caught?" The question hung in the air between us. I wanted to say I was sorry I'd done it, but the truth was more complicated than that. I was sorry about the consequences, sorry about the public humiliation, sorry about the effect on Issa. but the kiss itself. I don't know, I admitted finally. It was the first completely honest thing I'd said in 2 weeks, and the relief of saying it was overwhelming. Patricia gathered up the documents and placed them back in her folder. Mr. Price is prepared to offer the following terms for the legal separation, she said, sliding a new set of papers across the table. He will retain primary custody of your daughter, with you having supervised visitation rights until such time as you complete counseling and demonstrate a pattern of responsible behavior. He will remain in the family home. You will have 30 days to find alternative housing. Supervised visitation, I gasped. She's my daughter. She's a daughter whose mother's poor judgment has made her the subject of playground gossip and news coverage, Patricia replied matter-of-factly. Mr. Price's primary concern is protecting her from further exposure to this situation. I looked at the papers through tears, the legal language swimming before my eyes. Everything I'd built, everything I'd worked for, reduced to a custody schedule and property division. What if I don't sign? Then we'll see you in court, Patricia said. With all of this evidence presented to a judge who will be far less sympathetic than my client has been. Adrian spoke for the first time in several minutes. Calantha, I'm not trying to punish you. I'm trying to protect our daughter and what's left of our family's dignity. By taking her away from me, by giving you a chance to figure out who you want to be, the woman who cheated and then spent 2 weeks lying about it, or the woman who can take responsibility for her actions and work to earn back the trust she broke. I stared at the separation papers, my signature line waiting at the bottom of the final page. Everything in me wanted to fight this, to argue, to find some way to turn this around. But as I looked at the mountain of evidence spread across the table, evidence of my own poor choices, my own words, my own refusal to accept responsibility, I realized that I had no fight left. I picked up the pen and signed my name, each letter feeling like a small death. When it was done, Adrian stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. I loved you, he said quietly, not turning around. I loved you so much that I would have forgiven almost anything. But I can't forgive someone who isn't actually sorry. He turned to face me then, and I could see tears in his eyes for the first time since this whole nightmare began. Maybe someday you'll understand what you've lost, and maybe someday you'll be genuinely sorry for losing it, but by then, it will be too late. Patricia handed me a copy of the signed papers and her business card. You have 30 days, she reminded me. I suggest you use them wisely. As I walked out of that conference room and into the bright afternoon sunlight, I felt completely untethered from the life I'd known just 2 weeks before. My marriage was over, my daughter would be living with her father, and I was about to become a cautionary tale whispered about in suburban coffee shops and school pickup lines. The 3-second kiss that I'd insisted didn't count had cost me everything that counted. And for the first time, I understood that regret, real, bone-deep regret, wasn't something you could just declare. It was something you had to earn through the wreckage of everything you'd destroyed.